Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Simon Bungate, Talk Strength Podcast, and today we have Simone Freeman. Really pumped about this. Great podcast. I'm really interested in female sports and also keen to hear from a female S&C coach who is really one of the ones leading the way here in Australia for female coaches, like dominating, getting into lots of elite sports with GWS, with the females in netball and also in AFL, but also been working with the guys, the male team in the GWS Giants. So can't wait to get her in here and chat about that. It's going to be awesome. But before we jump in, again, I just want to mention Chalk Strength, the equipment company who helps us to do these podcasts. Check out their gear. We've got some pretty cool things on the way. But if you're looking for a belt squat, if you're looking to add some cables, 7-station cables, if you're looking to add reverse hypers, pendulums, all the cool things, all the things that good athletes need, all the things that will give your gym a lot of variation, then check out the website, chalkstrength.com.au. And also just want to mention Clean Shred. The internship is now becoming intensive. We put the internship out there and we got heaps of inquiries, but almost every person was from out of Sydney. So we had people from Melbourne, Brisbane, New Zealand, even people from Spain and France. So what we've decided to do is make it into an intensive. So we're going to release our first level 1 Clean Shred intensive. It's going to be 3 days, action-packed. If you want to check that out, just head over to my Instagram, chalk_Bungate, in the link profile there, in the profile link. You can check it out. Go in there, fill out your details, and I'll send you through all the information. It's going to be kicking off late November. So super pumped about that. But without any further ado, let's jump in. Very keen to hear what Simone has to say. Welcome to the podcast for elite personal trainers and coaches. This is where we learn all the secrets to building a successful business and impacting the world. Welcome back to the Chalk Strength podcast. My name is Simon Bungate, and excited again to have another awesome guest on board. Today we have Simone Freeman, and I'm really excited to ask her all things about strength and conditioning, but of course, in particular, being a female strength and conditioning coach and also working with female athletes. I'm really excited to get her take on that. But before we talk too much about what you're doing now, can you give us a quick intro into yourself and where you've come from and what you've been doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I guess a little bit of my story and I guess where I've come from and how I've gotten to where I'm at. I originally started as an athlete, playing softball. So that was kind of the direction I took back then, and ended up going overseas to the US to play college ball for 4 years. Then while I was over there, we had an S&C coach, and to be honest, I didn't really know it was a pathway for a career. So that's where I started to become a little bit more interested in the field. And then following that, I ended up staying on an extra year over there to do my internship. So I ended up turning down going professional for softball to do my internship at the university I was working at. Absolutely loved it. It was hard as hell. Then decided I wanted to move back to Australia to be around family and friends. So came back here and ended up getting an internship at the Giants. That's where I started under Lockie and David Joyce at that stage. Spent the year doing my internship and then ended up getting a gig with the club, both with Netball and AFLW the following year. And now that's kind of expanded across all 3 teams as well.
Right. So sorry, the netball, the AFL, and what's the
and the AFLW. So the men, the women, and the netball.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
Essentially now what I do is head up the 2 women's programs and then just assist in the men's as an assistant strength and conditioning coach.
Wow, how exciting! Initially, like just from that, did you see much of a difference between your internship in the States to when you came back and did one in Australia?
It's very different, I reckon, in terms of probably mentalities a little. It's a bit more, I say, old school over there, but I think the college system and, that I was in and even worked in, it kind of needs it. It's very big on driving and developing people before the athlete a little bit, and I think they use the old tough love way of going about it, which I don't have anything against. I think it worked quite well, actually. So,
That's interesting because they've probably been doing it professionally a little bit longer probably than Australia. But you think they're sort of more old school and tougher approach?
A little bit. I don't feel they use the science as much over there, and it could just be in the college system where it kind of doesn't allow for a lot of it because they are quite busy. But at the same mentality, I think it's having had a look back at it. I don't think the body knows what it doesn't know as well. So as many people would probably look over there and think some people are crazy and this and whatnot or going too hard or however, I didn't really find a difference in, say, injuries and a few things over there, even when I was playing, because you don't know any different as a player. And you adapt and you get on.
Very true. So then you come back to Australia, and I remember we had an interview about working with us early on, and then I don't know if you took the right decision to work with David Joyce and Lockie Wilmot. Big, tough decision. But no, obviously they're amazing coaches to intern under. Do you have like some specific things like from back then that you learnt or found interesting?
Thinking back then, it's a while back. Joycey was quite, the biggest thing I guess as a young S&C, and the biggest thing he drove, I reckon, was having a bloody good reason for doing what you were doing. And I still remember, back in those days, he used to pull you up in the middle of nowhere and ask you why you're doing this, and if your answer wasn't good enough or it was too flappy and buttered up with whatever, he used to tear you apart, which I think is probably one of the best things he ever did for me as a coach. It made me start to think why I was doing what I was doing. And then Lockie, just as a coach himself, he was just a phenomenal manager in that space, and I've probably never met someone as calm and rational as him. So that was definitely a big learning experience for me, and also just pretty much picking his mind on everything because he's a very smart man.
No, 100%. So then let's get into like you being a female and coming into that area, and how did you find that? And I guess after that question is, what advice do you have to any that are listening that might want to get into this or already into it? But
I think in the space, and this is probably the way I look at it, and whether it's right or wrong, so be it. But you do need there is an elephant in the room being a female in a male space, and it really just depends on how you carry yourself. I think we don't do ourselves justice sometimes when we do like to fly the female flag a little bit. But you just need to get over it, and you're a person and get on with it. So that's just how I've always looked at it, and that's how I've kind of approached it. And say in some instances, it just is what it is sometimes, female and male space, and get over it and you get on with it, and people end up respecting you for the work you do. And
no, it's different, like being a player, like rugby league player, and then going back into it as a S&C, and then like we had no females in the space, so it is just different as well. There's that element of it just being different for the guys,
absolutely.
Coming through, they might not have experienced that, so there's that side of things. But do you have any particular strategies that you used, or any sort of examples of things that happened as you're sort of, I guess, trying to find your position and find your position of, what would you call it? Like,
almost be authority a little bit with players in a way.
Like authority and knowledge and that side of things, like finding your position, or maybe you think that you shouldn't have to do that, or did you have sort of ways that you would, show how much you know, or show how much you care?
It does come back to that, show how much you care before how much you know. But I think for me as a female coach, it was having the courage just to say how you felt at times to players or to your staff members or whatnot, is just to back yourself in. I know it's probably not a lot of female nature to be out there a little bit and back yourself in, have a bit more of that ego, as you would say. But at some stage, and especially with play, you just need to be like, look, you're not pulling your weight here, get it done. And that's kind of how I guess you earn your respect a little bit, and without applying it as a personal personal thing or whatnot. So
yeah,
I know they talk about it a lot, females, like in the sports scene and everything else. So to me, it comes down to just being a decent person and being a bloody good coach at the end of the day. And there will be a few hurdles that you do need to jump, and that's just the reality of it. But you move on.
Yeah. No, I think, everything you're saying is right. I think you can be as good at everything that the male does, but then you've also, like, you're crazy not to use some of the strengths that a female has, which might be some more understanding or just being able to look at things at a different perspective to what the guys are.
Yeah. David Boyle was actually one of my first external mentors I had coming through as a young S&C. And I remember the first day I met him, he was in the gym, shirt off, freaking throwing some tin around like Boyley does. And next conversation he had with me, he's like, look, you're a female when you go into a male space. He's like, you need to be absolutely presenting yourself on. He's like, you need to be able to lift. He's like, you need to be looking strong. So you need to hold yourself well, and you need to be able to talk the talk.
Yeah.
So he's like, get that right, and you'll be good to go. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that's for male or female, but particularly female. So that's great. And so, do you train outside of the sessions? Do you train in with the guys, or is there a certain sort of style of training that you do? Or?
Personally, I find, well, if I ever do end up training with the guys, it's if someone's in rehab, I'll do a bit of bench with them while they're benching and a few things like that, or do a bit of bicep curls when they're finishing off at the end. That's probably more my way of connecting with them in that kind of space. Training in myself, I still like to get up early and get that done before going into work, and I've probably moved a bit more down to non-specific training now that I've finished up softball. With having a bit of a crook back, it's those things kind of moved away from me a little bit more, and it's more just trying to build the appearance a little bit more and being able to do enough to be able to show some lifts and being able to hold my own in the gym, essentially.
So tell me a bit more, before we get across to the female athletes, tell me a little bit more about what you are doing with the guys with the GWS.
So pretty much just with the guys, I assist in the gym and where they need on field as well. So it's just pretty much coaching in that gym in that space at this stage. In the game.
A pretty good year. It's obviously good to be around teams that are going well. Have you sort of taken something out from the team environment of a team going well?
It's definitely very different vibe this year as I would say last year, but it's actually really good to see the boys having learnt so much about themselves over the last few years and how they've applied themselves a little bit different. You definitely pick up on their confidence and how they have applied themselves a lot differently over the years, and I think they've just grown up, to be honest, in that space, which is great to see. And I feel now they're getting a bit more intrigued by why we do what we do as they become older, and I just enjoy working with them.
Yeah, that's interesting. And then if we move across to the females, tell me about doing just training females, but also training females, I guess, in two different sports and some of the differences between that.
Yeah, so the netball and the AFLW are, I guess, pretty much two complete kettles of fish. In that sense, I would say my netball has probably got a little bit more, they definitely have a bit more training history behind them. And they kind of know what the right questions are to ask, and they are quite intrigued by their own training and where they're going, and they want to know the plan and also have some opinion in that plan as well.
So generally netballers have been doing it since they were young. Come through.
I think S&C is probably taking off a little bit more for them now. They've always been in the system, but it's starting now to become a bigger part of the pie for them, and a bit more interest for a lot of them. When before it was pretty much just a check the box kind of component of training. And the AFLW, it's kind of starting from scratch a little bit with trying to teach people how to train, start from the basics and try and teach people what elite is. And I know a lot of them kind of want to get ahead a lot quicker than what they are, and that's probably one of the hardest things as a coach. You're still trying to win championships, but without trying to fast track these girls and give them, I guess, the right to slowly work through their their physical process of where they're coming from. So the hardest thing with them is you get a 31-year-old in the gym who's, you'd be training as pretty much a 15-year-old, and you get some good little 21-year-olds who've been lifting forever, and it's trying to find the juggling act between it all, which is...
Yeah, and that's because they're coming from different sports,
different walks of life.
Yeah.
And
so what are examples that you're getting with, like, there's sprinters and rowers and all sorts of things coming across and playing AFL, or is it?
Yeah, if we're lucky enough to get a sprinter, I would take that.
Yeah.
But,
what are they mainly?
We get a lot of soccer. We've got a couple of basketball girls, got a cricketer in at the moment. So finding the juggling act even with her, because she's a young bowler who's trying to able her to get strong enough footy, but at the same time not affecting her her bowling as well. So that's quite tough. Most of the athletes that we do get coming in from other sports, they are probably the easier ones to work with because they know what they're doing and what the standard is. It's the girls that are coming from normal walks of life that have been playing club footy for a couple of years and then being thrown in the deep end of semi-professional sport is probably the most difficult thing to manage. But teach you how to be a coach at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%.
Kind of separates. It makes me appreciate how much work you got to do for, I guess, a semi-professional sport compared to the elite, where you just trying to make some small, really minute changes in the men's space, where you can make such a massive change in the female space.
Yeah, so true. Let's talk about maybe netball first. So tell me about, like, the key training principles, or what your key things are that you do with netball players.
It's kind of shifted across the years. So when I was first working with netball, I was just trying to get these girls to be athletes again. I remember the first year I walked in and I was like, oh my goodness, they're absolute weapons on the court. Take them off the court, they're absolute gumbies. So we started real basic back then, is just trying to teach these girls how to be athletic again and move and actually do different things outside the netball court, because they had been quite restrictive in that space for a few years. Now we're kind of shuffling too. A lot of our girls are starting now to become strong enough to open up a few different areas. So kind of split the program a little bit into a bit more of a change of direction athlete, or if you're a jumper, and that's kind of how the program's now probably, I would say, split into two a little bit, depending on what your makeup is and your physical attributes, and then what we need you to provide on the court as well. So
is it mostly like the center field people and then our shooters and keepers, or?
A little bit. It's probably a little bit more profiling a little bit. So probably a good example is Kim Green, who just retired for us. Even though she's a key centre player, like, she's just a big change of direction athlete who's not really one of our main jumpers, but a little young girl coming through with us, Amy Parmento, who still plays in the mid-court, is, not as strong change of directional wise, but her major asset is her ability to spring. So that's what we're going to keep chipping away at, and just providing a bit more assistance in that change of directional space.
That's cool. Do you have a few examples of, like, do you have key indicator lifts or things that you look for with, maybe if we go the jumper ones first?
We do, and this is probably something I'm still flirting with a little bit now, is providing a little bit more jump mechanics in the gym over just more physical attributes in that space. So we still get jump squats, probably do inside the Smith machine a little bit more, working a little bit more Olympic lifts, but we also quite dominant a bit more of that high squat, half squat space, just to try and get some load through in these girls. Hemis are a big one, especially with these ACLs coming through. So they're always a key lift for us. And we don't really have that worry on the court that they're really going to hit top speed to stress that too much. So we definitely hit Hemis probably a lot more than I would, especially with the footy, because knowing they are going to stride out to max speed.
So what's your thought, like, around that as well? I guess I wanted to talk about it at some stage, but I guess with the different hip angles, like, do you think that's, like, do you guys do something different with females to guys because of hip angles, or is it just generally just more hamstring strength work?
Especially when we're looking at, I guess, ACLs, my philosophy is a little bit get them as strong as possible, not letting that go in any way, shape or form. When it comes to landing a little bit, I've driven a little bit more higher intense stuff than basic drop jumps and things like that. I think a lot of the programs coming through and where I've had these girls, they do a lot of low level landing stuff, but they haven't been exposed into the more high intense stuff. When they go on court is all they do. Yeah. So we drive that all the time.
What's an example? Is it like jumping from a higher box?
So we'll do a lot more like max 3 hop for distance more often as I would say a preventative thing than just a physical performance side of things, and just reframing that mindset that it's not always just about physical performance. This is actually our resilience training in this space is just high level plyos and pushing them in areas that are completely uncomfortable in that space. Now the netball, like just to watch, like the stopping force that those girls go for is insane. They just stop on a dime sort of thing. Yeah, freaky. Sometimes you watch and you don't know how things don't happen at stages, especially when they're landing on other people's feet. People are running through them in a planted space, but you just got to build them as best you can.
Yeah, with ankles, like obviously that is one as well. Like they're always landing on other people's feet, and you're right. Sometimes they get up and you're like, how did that happen? But is there something in training that you do specifically around the ankles?
Not so. To be honest, I don't stress over them as much in that space. To be fair, I actually ended up leaving it to the physio a little bit. But one of the main things I do for injury prevention is actually the girls play footy once a week in the cage together, and it gets messy, but it does put them in very awkward positions sometimes, and they do try and take hangers and fall off someone else and tackle each other. So that's kind of my little way of getting around a few things and putting them in a situation of, say, random activity. That kind of ticks a few boxes for me.
Cool. In the cage, that sounds exciting.
It gets a bit out of hand.
So it's like a limited space, like a small area.
It's probably a little small soccer court that you would say.
And they're playing what sort of like league sort of, or
AFL?
AFL,
So they do like try and take hangers off each other and tackle each other in stages. So,
there's something about that just play as well that is really effective. So I guess that's netball. Like if we come across to the AFL girls, is there something in particular that I guess you're working more on basics now? Is there something in particular that you look at for key indicators? It sounds like it's very individualized at the moment because they're so different.
It is a little bit. With the time and the space we have with them, it does become quite hard, but it's actually trying to strip back your ego a little bit of how much you want to do with some people and just trying to get the basics done right. So I wouldn't say the program is overly fancy by any means, but we do just drive a few key lifts in that space. I try not waste a lot of time on fluffy stuff in the program, and just trying to get some big key lifts in there and a bit of single leg work in the space as well. And then most of, I would say, any landing or control or stability, however you want to frame it, I normally put in more of a plyometric space and try and couple that in with that, so it kind of ticks a few boxes at once. That's cool.
So if we want to sort of reach out to like someone who might be listening, or people that work with younger girls in particular, like say maybe 15, 16, 17, is there something that you can recommend that these girls can be learning now that will help them if they do get in and start training with yourself?
My best thing would be get in the gym, even if you start on basic machine-based work. Just try and get strong. There's nothing fancy in that area, but you can start off definitely with that. The other thing I think that's missing a little bit is a bit more technical stuff of just learning how to jump. I don't think that is done enough in that sports setting, especially coming through. I think it's been skipped a little bit in the female space as they're trying to drive structure and all this other riffraff a little bit more, when they need to be spending more time at literally just practicing a 3-step up and jump and catch. Like, do that on repeat, start to get the mechanics going right, and then go for it. Because a lot of these girls probably would only done 1 or 2 during training and then expect to do something elite on the weekend, and then that's when you start to see problems a little bit. So just start go back to the basics, work mechanics, spend some time, just get reps in that space to try and get the right mechanics and movement.
Yeah, that's cool. I think I like the idea of breaking down what your main movements are that you do when you play, and you can watch that, and it's actually probably not loads of different movements. Like it might be, like you said, a two-step jump off a right quite often. You might not do a two-step jump off your left, but that's something that you might want to practice in training. It might be like you just often doing a quick change in direction. Like I think the girls like I personally think they should look a little bit more at their own play. And you can watch so many videos, like so easy to get good videos now. And just have a look at what you're doing and what needs improvement, and just working on that yourself can make a big difference.
Yeah, it's probably one of the things from softball I got from there, especially being a pitcher. I used to spend hours on end just throwing into a net, like could be a half windmill, freaking doing the same thing, doing a rise ball, probably 100 of them basic to the same spot. And I just don't think that is I don't see it translating into some of these other team sports. That's probably not the role of the coach, but of the individual athlete to just get it done. And it doesn't necessarily need to be on, say, improving a handball to a space, but even just like your physical attributes of learning how to jump, just 1, 2, 3 up, or change direction and go. Like really basic stuff. I just don't think we're spending enough time and then expecting the body to produce when we want it to.
Yeah, I think the same, like from what I said before, like looking at your own videos, but also finding someone who's a similar body shape to you, who is playing at the top, and go, what are they doing really well?
Yeah, watching other athletes, watching them move, and let yourself educate that way as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I do what they're doing now? Like, it doesn't have to be at their level, but can you even do the movements that they're doing? And then work on that. Yeah, I think there's something in there for
absolutely.
S&T coaches as well as athletes. I think that's cool. So I guess what's the future do you see for female athletes, first of all, or female sports? Like it's coming along. I'm excited about, like I like watching, I love watching I watched the women's rugby league that was on before, and I watched the women's like State of Origin, and I've been like, whenever it's on, I actually like watching it because it does feel fairly pure. Like and it feels like there's just real, like I was saying to you before we jumped on, it feels like there's more passion and there's a little bit more I guess individual effort, and it feels a little bit more genuine to me. I kind of like watching it. So
it's definitely a different game altogether, the women's space, and I guess all shapes of the game. Where it's going to go is, I think the sky's the limit, and I think it's really now up to the athletes to drive probably a little bit more in their, I guess, physical prep and their attention to detail with their sport itself, more than the media sides of things, or trying to get what you think you deserve. That'll come, I reckon. Okay. They'll probably be shocked for saying that, but I think if you take care of your own sport and take care of your own game, it'll come along nicely, and I don't think that's going to be something they'll need to worry about in that space.
That's probably a little bit off topic, but with that side of things, like with the financial side of things, do you feel at the moment that, I'm not going to go down like what they're getting paid or anything, but do you feel like they're being well managed? Like, do they have player managers, or do you feel like it's like they're in this stage where they kind of actually have to try and fend for themselves as athletes?
I think there is a little bit of that. And there isn't a lot of money in the game, but I think there's enough. And I probably don't think some of them realise some of the other sports, especially Olympic sports, where they're running off absolutely nothing. I don't think it should be their absolute driver. And these are the stages in your sport and career when you don't have all the money, you don't have all the assistance, and you're just a bloody blue collar worker. These are the times you just bloody enjoy. You get after it, you do your sport, and you absolutely love it. It's some of the best times I even remember back in college when you, like me and my mates, didn't have a lot of money, and you'd be helping your mate out eating for the next few days until they got paid, but they were some of the best days, and you wouldn't change it just for a little bit of extra coin at the stage. I would just say enjoy it. Why it is where it's at, because these are the days you remember, and when you're running off no money, and you do only have the basics at some stages. But to be honest, I think they've been taken care of pretty well at this stage. It is growing quite rapidly. You just need to be in for the ride, and it's just not all going to happen quick. And I think that's just the reality of it. You need to accept that and just enjoy the game because you get to play it.
Is there like professional athletes that are making good money now?
Oh, there definitely is. You can definitely see through the leagues. I even know like Caitlin Bassett in our team, she's doing well for herself, and a few of the other girls in that space as well that definitely have, I guess, contracts with us, and then contracts with their international teams, and then sponsors on top are doing well. And there's the same thing with the AFLW. I think a few of those Melbourne girls down there are doing quite well for themselves, which is great to see. Setting the benchmarks for a few. It's just going to take some time for everyone else to get on the same page, which is just how it is.
And you probably find those girls probably are the ones that are hard workers as well.
Like absolutely.
They're really into their craft and going really hard at it. So
it's one thing to get paid, but it's another thing to be able to continuously do that, achieve that in the end. So they're definitely doing the right thing, or otherwise that would have been stripped a long time ago. Yeah,
that's cool. And then for yourself, what's the future for yourself? Where do you see yourself in the
that's quite
next few years?
Quite an interesting one to fiddling with at the moment. To be honest, I'm not actually sure where I want to go. I think I do eventually want to end up in a male space in terms of that for a professional team, or also head back to the US, maybe in the college system to work with that age group again. So that's kind of where I'm looking, but at the same time, I don't know. I do love doing what I do, and it's probably one of the things Kimmy Green said to me probably about 2 years ago. We're having a discussion. She's like, "Oh, it's quite interesting, the S&C world that you see. You look at coaches, and they're just looking for their next job title or their next badge on their chest." And I was like, "Oh, that's quite interesting that you like that you
from
see
an athlete,
that you see it that way." And she's like, "Oh, that's just how it looks now with people on Instagram. You can definitely see people are just trying to sell themselves, and you can pick them out a little bit when they're not here for you." And it's more the job title or the organisation they work for, or the image that they're trying to get instead of actually being here for the athlete, which hit home for me a few years back. And she was absolutely right. I think our industry is getting a little bit messy with that. And you kind of pick the people out pretty quick who's just jumping from one to the other just to try and get a better job title. Where I think I want to leave a legacy and then go from there.
Yeah, cool. What is it about the getting back into the guys sports and the US that sort of excites you now?
I think the guys kind of interest me a little bit more because you have such a team around you in that space, and I think I want to be challenged a little bit more in that because it is quite demanding with the people around you, and it's being able to communicate a bit better and collaborating in a team, bit more of a team environment where I probably don't have that luxury of that many people in the female space. And the US, I think that age group is, you get to shape people, and that interests me a lot, between that 18 to 22, and everyone comes from different walks of life. And they just train bloody hard. There's just so much room to make a difference in there. And I've had some pretty good S&Cs come through when I was in there. So, it's kind of a way I want to go and give back, and then also give back to the industry over there and provide some knowledge and the things that I've learned over here.
That's cool. Would you go back to softball?
No. Even with them in the Olympics, I don't think that's in my realm anymore. I love the game, absolutely love the game and competing, but I don't think that's where I need to be at the moment. So, I think that ship sailed, and I'm quite content with that.
Cool. I want to throw in one tricky question to finish off, and that is there something that you've changed your mind on recently? Can be to do with training or sports, or I know I was throwing this on you at the last second and didn't prep you up for this.
That's a good one. It's probably one thing I've been fiddling with a little bit in my head is this whole concept of Probably if I explain it right here, I don't know. Load management. I don't know if we're fine tuning our athletes too much,
Right.
that if they end up going off the rails, they're unable to handle that. So that's been something I've been having a think about a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously there is.
What do you mean by going off the rails?
Oh, just say if they, I don't know, we need them to do more than we've asked them to, say back up this game and play 100%, and that's now, they're unable to cope with this, and then,
Right.
Ended up, I don't know, doing an injury or something in that space. Right. If we're just fine-tuning these athletes to produce what we need them to produce, instead of being a little bit more robust and well-rounded in that space.
Sure. So you mean by load management, holding them back more? Or?
A little bit. So say if we look at probably a bit more in the AFL space, being a little bit too controlling some days. If an athlete's feeling good, just letting them go, letting the horse run at some stages, and just letting them open up the gates. If they're on today, they're on. And have a good training, get what you can out of it. And you know what, if your sprint distance does go up and whatnot, and you're feeling great, then so be it. And then we'll go from there. But I think sometimes we probably put the handbrake on a little bit too much. But it's probably something I'm fiddling with in my own mind a little bit more.
Yeah. Are you thinking physical and mental state? Or
a bit of both.
Yeah,
Definitely. There is some days I miss that. Probably a little bit over here. It's just the grind days that I remember having, where you just absolutely push to the brink of exhaustion, and mentally it's probably one of the best things that ever happened. But it doesn't quite fit the plan in terms of load management, and I don't know if strength and conditioning is losing that a little bit.
I agree a little bit in the side of league. Like I remember back to, I think you feel painful moments or hard moments more in training, because when you're playing and there's a hard moment, you're just playing in the game, and you don't really have to take the time to go, oh, I'm finding this hard, should I keep going or not? You just keep going. Whereas in training, you have those thoughts, and you have those opportunities to break through it and push yourself through it just through fear, through sheer determination. I think that is like when I think back to those times, I can remember times of training where you just I just cannot go it again, and you somehow get yourself to go. But in the games, I can't remember those situations.
Yeah, that's so true.
But I think you can call back on those training situations of where it's tough in a game and keep going automatically. That's a subconscious sort of thing.
So that's probably one of the things that's, I wouldn't say change of mind, but something I've been thinking about is how, a little bit you can still get those moments a bit more.
Well, there's a few league teams, I suppose, that have the old school strength and conditioning coaches still there with the young guys. So they must get them in every now and then and go, it's your turn. They need a bit of toughening up.
So
awesome.
That would be my only thing.
Cool. Anything else you want to
add? No, I think you pretty much picked my brain out here. So.
If anyone wants to chat to you, email you or follow you.
Absolutely, or jump on Instagram and just DM me through that, and we'll get going.
And your Instagram is?
Simfree36. So just the easiest way to probably get a hold of me, and I'll get back to you.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
Beautiful. Thanks for having me.
Talk Strength, equipment built for athlete and life performance. We've got it all, and we're going to create your dream space.